Final Fantasy VII Remake has been a game, or rather a series, met with many concerns. Worries concerning its battle system, characters, and general presentation has transmuted from a state of anxiety to a state of excitement in the eye of the general consensus simply due to the E3 presentation. It was really well done. However, there is one concern that doesn't seem to subside. It's the concern that most people can't wrap their head around: the remake's multi-game structure, or better known by its much less descriptive terminology, episodes. It's an issue born out of a combination of explaining modern game development to a crowd that isn't readily able to understand it, and quite honestly, the fact that Square Enix is doing a really poor job of effectively communicating the benefits and the level of detail that's gained from this episodic structure. For example, each one of these so-called episodes is the size and scale of a full Final Fantasy game. So with each release, it's like we're getting a new mainline title, which if you really love Final Fantasy VII, then that's literally the best thing that could happen. But with that said, people still deserve to know how many of these episodes there will be, because above all else, people are most concerned with how many of these games they'll have to buy just to get to the final fight with Sephiroth. And I understand that, and I think that's legitimate. I would have thought by now, especially at E3, we would have gotten some hard confirmation on just how many of these games there will be. So what's the reason that we still don't know how many games will make up the full Final Fantasy VII story? That's because Square Enix themselves do not know yet. Yes, I'm serious. Video game journalist Jason Schreier recently was able to sit down with the director of the original game and now the producer of the remake, Yoshinori Kitase, and ask him just how many of these games there will be in the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. Schreier saying, quote, "Just ask Yoshinori Kitase how many games are going to be in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. He said we can't say yet because we don't know ourselves." People reading these comments thought that perhaps he just didn't want to reveal how many episodes there are yet, and maybe this was his way of joking. Schreier, having been there and knowing the full context, clarified saying, quote, "No, they were very clear. Kitase said they're in the process of planning out the scope for the second game right now." Oh boy, I can already see the comments in my head on this one. But with that said then, surely the times between these games will be much shorter, right? I mean, after all, they're reusing assets, code, and a variety of other things, which should speed up the amount of time it's going to take, right? Well, maybe not. Game Informer now reports that Kitase is saying that he does not believe development on further entries in the remake project will be much shorter in development of the first game, which, yeah, that's pretty bad. If each game is the size of a full Final Fantasy game, then I don't care how many there are, because each game is like getting a full next mainline Final Fantasy. But what I do care about is how long will it take to get through just 7's story alone? So much for a remake of 8 or 9. According to Kitase, while characters and such are done, which will make some things easier, new environments will likely still take some time. Quote, "I do not expect it to be dramatically shorter," he said. Square Enix's public relations team, likely wanting to clean up how much bad PR they realized that statement was, sent Game Informer a follow-up email following the statement from Kitase. The email saying, quote, "While the development team finishes the first game of the project, they are also planning the volume for the second. Due to the work already done on the first game, we anticipate that the development of the second game will be more efficient. However, for now we would like to focus on the development of the first game." This seems in opposition to Kitase's uncertainty about how long it'll take to complete the games, as a more efficient development would often imply that the game is going to take less time to develop. So these statements are puzzling. It could just be referring to what Kitase said before about characters and stuff being done, and so that aspect will be easier. Though it's very true that environments take a tremendous amount of time to create, and will be a challenge going forward for them. That said, it does confirm what I had previously stated in an earlier video. Square Enix has already begun pre-production stages for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. The closer we get to March, the more the team will transition over to the next part of this multi-game epic. But the fact that there's uncertainty for how many parts there should even be from Square Enix doesn't exactly drive consumer confidence. As I've stated before, the Final Fantasy VII Remake series should be a trilogy, as 3 is the perfect number of games to me for an ongoing story. That being said, Part 1 is still confirmed to be exclusively confined to Midgar, and yes, that is confirmed and verified by multiple outlets, before anyone wants to try to argue with me again on that. That being said, Part 2 is likely going to focus on the open world aspects, which open worlds are extremely time consuming to build, and that's even with all the assets that they currently currently have built. That being said, Kitase has also reconfirmed that every single part of Final Fantasy VII Remake will be a full game the size of a mainline Final Fantasy game, which is super exciting. So with all this being said, Ultima Weapons, how many parts do you think Final Fantasy VII Remake should be delivered in? We now know it's definitely not 2, 3, 4? Personally, I'm less concerned about how many games there'll be in the remake and more concerned about how long it'll take. In either case, subscribe, click the bell icon, and let me know in the comments below. And if you've been enjoying my content, be sure to check out the Patreon for the Night Sky Prince, like my incredible supporter, Christos, who is helping me bring you every bit of Final Fantasy VII Remake information nearly every single weekday. Thank you so much, Christos. Shout out to him and the rest of the Ultima community.